Alrighty. Hi everyone. I'm here drinking some coffee. This is my second cup. I'm feeling a little bit jittery. I added milk, and the earlier one I got peppermint mocha from Walmart, the little creamer, and it was really good. So I'm excited. I'm excited to do a video again. But I wanted to read something because, you know, I need to cover myself for the future. So I'm going to read something off of my iPad, okay? So I'm not a therapist or a psychologist. I'm just a mom who fell in love with the Big Five and wants to share what I'm learning. This is a reflection and curiosity only, not medical or psychological advice. If you need support, please talk to a licensed professional. Thank you for being here. So I have to say that because, you know, this is my story, and I am not a psychologist. I went to college, but I didn't major in anything medical, which actually I'm very grateful I didn't. Let me tell you something, because all through my life, I knew that I love to help people. I knew it. But anytime you search online, like, what is it that you know, when you're like, I want to help people, like, what can I do as a career? They always talk about nursing. Never interested in nursing. Never interested in the medical field. And then when I tapped into psychology, I believe I had a psychology class in college. I was too far into my years of college, and college was so stressful for me. I did not like college at all. I was always super stressed. So when I graduated, I was just so grateful to be done with it. I was so grateful. I was like, thank the Lord, I'm done with this. There was no way I was going to extend my college years just to change majors. Nope. I hated tests. I hated writing big papers. I hated having like always the pressure of everything that I still don't like. You know, in the beginning of the year, I'd be so enthusiastic. I'd be like, yes, this semester I'm going to be on top of everything. I'm going to do everything I need to do. And then, you know, days would roll by and I wouldn't. And then I'd like fall behind on certain stuff. And then I also put a lot of pressure on myself to do like, have good grades, have a good GPA. But the thing is with me, I'm not one of those people that can just not study, not pay attention, take a test and do okay. I have to really get down and study. So like, let's say I didn't care about a class, I would fail it. I can either get a B, a C, maybe an A, but like if I just went in and said, I don't care what grade I have, I would fail the class because I have to you know, I have to really pay attention to what I'm doing. So if I didn't put so much pressure on myself to get like maybe a good grade, then I would just fail the class. So then I would just be, you know, freaking out about it. So that's that. What else was I gonna say? I have terrible allergies. I mean, they're so bad. At nighttime is the worst. And so right now I'm just, when I wake up, I just feel like, ugh. But I'm really excited about this. And so that's why I probably need to get on with it, right? You're like, stop talking about yourself. All right. So last time that we talked, it was about, basically we're going to start with the Big Five, right? And I'm going through the history because this is what motivates me. This is like the beginning of the story in a way. I'm gonna start from the beginning of the story. No, from the end of the story. So 1961. All right, let's go back. Let's review just a few minutes so that it also gives me a little bit more of a, okay. So here we go. All right. You see that? Okay. So in 1884, Sir Francis Galton proposed the idea that in order to really understand human behavior, let's look at the dictionary and like, there's going to be words that mean the same thing to describe human beings. And that there is the treasure box in a way. I feel like the treasure of words that will kind of, people are gonna find not that many words that actually mean the same thing, so that way we can understand human behavior. So that was in 1884. In 1936, 50 years later, Allport and Odbert were the ones to move that idea forward. They hired a bunch of interns. They worked on a project in which they did that. They went through the dictionary, 500,000 words, and they narrowed them down to 18,000. Then after 18,000, they narrowed them down to 4,500 words, okay? And they left it at that, because I don't know how long it took them, but they said, this is where we stop. This is our end of the project. So then in 1940, Raymond Cattell, another psychologist, wanted to continue on with this idea because he loved psychology. And then I think also I was kind of searching, you know, when is it that okay, so Raymond Cattell, working with Charles Spearman, the guy who came up with the G factor and S factor, very smart man, he invented factor analysis. So his mentor told him about using factor analysis to narrow down the 4,500,000 words. So Raymond Cattell, his drive was precision. He wanted a model that was mathematical, replicable, and useful, okay? So then he went on to work, and I don't know how long it took him. It took him 10 to 15 years. Guys, 10 to 15 years to narrow down the 4,500 words to 16 words. 16 words, okay? And so that was the 16. And then he published the test called 16 Personality Factors, PF. They call it 16 PF for short. And so then that became a really big hit in the personality psychology department of things. This is the guy. This is Mr. Cattell. So, you know, not everyone. There were still a lot of different tests that were being administered at the time. I don't have the list of them. But it's like, I want to understand the big five, and then I like look something up, and then there's like another rabbit hole, and I'm like, I can't, like, this is enough, right? Like, I don't have to give you the full history of the background. Like, I want to do it to where it allows me to understand it even more of a deeper level. But I know one of the things is that the other motivator for people to understand personality psychology is for predicting, a predictive model, you know, because the main thing is that people want to know what's going to be predicting, like how you are as an adult. How are you gonna, like, how's your life gonna be because of this? Also to be useful in careers and school, you know, stuff like that. That's why when I came across it and when I learned so much about myself, I just couldn't believe how I never heard about it until Jordan Peterson talked about it. And that's how I found about it. Jordan Peterson would talk about it on his channel, and he talks too fast for me sometimes. He would like roll off like the 5 traits to be like, and I'm like, what? Hold on, wait a second. I need to write them down. That's the first time I ever heard about the big 5. And he said that this is so data driven, that this is like actually tells you the truth of who you are as an individual. And it doesn't tell you what you want to hear, it tells you who you are. And, you know, he said, but people have to be careful when they take the test, because some people think, because, I mean, it's a human thing. We all want to know that we're special. We all, like, have the desire. Please tell me I'm special. Please tell me what I've been longing for my entire life wasn't just in my head. It's reality. But he says, you know, you take the test and it tells you the truth. And some people don't like hearing the truth. And that's very true. That's completely 100% true. Because not everyone, because it's hard to read, I mean, a certain trade, and then you feel bad and, you know, whatever. But if you are trying to have hope for the future of your life, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like, what do I do with my life? It's this, oh my goodness. And this is the most shocking thing for me, that I went to therapy for like 2 years. Never. I think I told my therapist about the big five. She had no idea what I was talking about. She was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And like, fast forward, that's been like years back, but fast forward, and once I was trying to understand myself more, I just could not believe it, how this is not, everybody knows about this. How does not everyone know about this? Like, it's like, you take self-help, which is very superficial. I feel like self-help is so superficial, because I read so many self-help books, and I would have such an enthusiastic outlook after I read them. I'm like, yes, this time I'm going to do this. And then time would pass and I would go back to who I was before. The big five, it's beyond that. It's way beyond that. And it really like makes you understand yourself, the questions that you've had for your entire life. And not everybody has that drive. You know, not everybody wants to understand themselves. Some people are fine with just like a simple answer about something, and that's fine. Everyone's different. But for those of us that want to understand the reason, why is this person this way? Why am I like this? Why does that hurt me? Why does he hurt me like that? Why does he make those comments? Why does she do this? It's just like, it gives you an architectural map of the person. It like gives you a blueprint of who they are as individuals. And you're not longer thinking that you're the crazy one. And I mean, when I found it, I just could not believe that this is out there. Like, this is out there for people to understand, for people to understand themselves. Like, this can help you in a marriage. This can help you with your kids. This can help you with, you know, sometimes I'm on X and people are asking, what is your marriage advice? What kind of marriage advice would you give someone, blah, blah, blah. And it's all generic marriage advice. And it's like, take the big five questionnaire and you will find out what you need to do to improve your marriage. Like, I'm just like, I just don't know. I'm like, how can people not know about this? This is like gold. This is gold in your hands, you know? And again, for the people that are interested, because I know not everybody cares, and that's okay. But for those of us that just want to, like, and this is a major thing, guys. When you want to understand people, when somebody gets on your nerves, when somebody hurts your feelings, when it's like you want to understand them because you still want to love them. Because you still want to love them. And you think that if I just understand why you're doing this, if I just understand why you're hurting me, if I just understand why you keep doing this to me when I tell you I don't like it, or I don't, you know, this is hurting me, why can't you understand that? And then you feel like, okay, I can understand you. Then I can still love you. I can still love you because I know the reasons why you're doing this, you know? And that's the drive. That was a drive for my entire life. That was a drive. Let me understand the why of you so I can still love you and not fight with you and not, you know, like whatever question it was, whatever reason it was. And then also, why do I feel like I feel with what you're doing? Why is that affecting me? And it's just a blueprint. It's a blueprint of everyone around you that you love and you want to understand. And the reason I'm going through the history is because I was so lost. I was so lost with my feelings because I always felt so much. I felt so much my entire life. And as I have continued to study this, and as I have given the questionnaire to everyone in my life that I love and that is close to me, I am back to why I felt so much. I get back to, that's why you felt you were crazy. That's why you felt you were too sensitive. That's why you felt you needed to toughen up, because you feel more than everyone else. You feel more than everyone else. And when you are living in a world that you feel more than everyone else, who becomes the one that's too sensitive? You, right? It's like, if everyone else doesn't feel as much as you do, then you got to be the problem, right? You got to be the one that needs to figure it out, what you're doing wrong to not feel so much. And and when I found this, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my results. I couldn't believe, like, the more that I understood what my results were. But I kept thinking, no, I kept thinking there's something wrong. I kept thinking my enthusiasm, I'm going to get hit with, like, yeah, you had that wrong. Like, over the weekend I had this, I'll tell you a little story when I was little. When I was little, I remember I always believed in God. Again, my family was never super religious, but they're religious as far as, like, we're Catholic and we follow certain Catholic, we follow, like, Catholic, but we don't go to church every Sunday. We're not, like, all over the church. And then in the house, we don't really talk a lot about religion. We would just, we'd talk about God, but we wouldn't disavow God or any of that. But I remember when I was little, I would pray. I had this, like, I prayed, like, with all my heart, that my Barbies would turn real. I think I was, like, I don't know, 12, 11. No, I think I was, like, 10. Yeah, about 10, probably 9 or 10. And I love playing with Barbies. And I prayed. I was like, oh, God, please make my Barbies turn real. And then I don't know if I saw somewhere, I think I probably saw TV, or I don't know. There was something that I had to have seen to have told me that you just got to pray. You just got to pray with all your heart, and anything possible will come real. Like, you just have to, like, really pray, like, with just your heart open. And I prayed. I was like, God, please make my Barbies turn real. Like, and I remember I had this little plastic bed. It was this plastic bed. And then I put the Barbie under the plastic bed, and then I'd pray. I'd be like, please, God, please, 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 please make my Barbies turn real. And I swear to you, I believed that was going to happen. I really did. I was like, okay. So when I would be like, Nick, tomorrow I'm going to check after coming back from school, and my Barbie is going to be walking around everywhere. And I would, like, I'll come back to my house and I'd be so excited because I believed that it was going to happen. I believed it was going to happen. And then it didn't happen. My Barbie was a Barbie. And I'd be so disappointed. And I can't remember what I know I was disappointed, but I can't remember if I felt maybe I didn't pray hard enough. Maybe I thought that. And so that was me. Okay? That's like a story I'll tell you of who I've been in my life. Okay? That if I just thought everything was going to be great, if everything was going to be wonderful, then it would be wonderful. Okay? And then reality would hit me. Be like, no, girl, you got it wrong. That is not how the world works. So that was my life in a way, a little bit, And so whenever I found the big 5, I thought that was a Barbie moment. I thought, this just makes too much sense to me. This really, like, this has opened my, like, when I found it, I'm like, no, I was like, I'm getting way too excited. I need to, like, tone it back down. I know eventually I'm going to come to something that's not real. Something's not adding up, because every time something would click so much in my heart. It'd be like, because I'm like in this imaginary world that's not real. Okay. So that is why God had to give me so much history into the big five. That is why God said, you are not making it up, even though your entire life you thought you lived in a fantasy world. This is not a fantasy. This is reality. And look at it and hold it and search it, and you will see that it's not just one person making it up. It's not theoretical. It's not just like intuitive. It's not like somebody just came up with the idea and they ran with it. It's not like anything. It's factual, it's predictable, it's useful, it's analytical, it's everything that you had hoped for your entire life in a way. Okay, and so that is why I want to go through the history, because I know that there are people like me out there. I know, even though the people around me didn't have the type of scores I had, this showed me a map that I had been looking for my entire life. And the reason I'm going through it is because I want you to know that this is not made up. This is not magical. This is not magical. This is not this is not just one person like thinking that they know how to understand people, and then this is actual science-based. There's been so many people throughout history that have worked on it. Very smart people, right? Very, very intelligent human beings that have moved the needle forward for decades. There's been so many not questionnaires, but analysis of different people to come up with this. So that's why I see allergies. It's terrible. That's why I'm going through it, because I need you to believe this. I need you to believe this. And you can look all this up. Like, you can look it up whichever way you want, and you will figure it out yourself. You know, you don't have to believe me. You actually don't. Like, actually, I'm giving you the information so that it's easier, you know, but you run with it. You figure out what rabbit holes you want to dig into, but this is real. So anyway, so I'll go back to, so that was Cattell, right? So Cattell did, he went from 4,500,000 words to 16 words using factor analysis. I think that was the first time they ever used factor analysis. Now, in 1961, Ernest Tupes and Raymond Christal, U.S. Air Force psychologists, they were assigned, I don't know who came up with the idea in the U.S. Air Force, but they're like, the 16 model factor just seems too complicated. I think they're like, it's the military. There's no limit on anything, right? They're like, we need to figure this out. So in 1961, somebody assigned them to actually look for even more simpler traits, to where 16 was still too many traits to like test and stuff. So again, Tupes and Christal, there's no picture of them that I could find. They concluded the 16 factors were too many and too intercorrelated for practical military use. They were not trying to replace Cattell. They weren't like in a competition with him. It was more of an internal information with the U.S. And this is one of the things I've also noticed, is that once the U.S. military gets involved, it's like something small becomes just, oh gosh, what is the word? I'm not trying to say it becomes more real, but it becomes like so much more provable, because the military has a lot of resources. There's no limit on the resources. So it's like, once it hit, like, I feel like anything, once it hits the U.S. military, it's just like, it's limitless. Like, we're going to figure this out. If we want to figure it out, we're going to figure it out. And again, very smart people, people that understand so many things. Again, people I admire, intelligent people I admire. Again, back to God. Like, he knew it. He knew I needed to have something that he knew that about me. All right, so they came up after 2 years every day working on this, and it seems like it's just 2 years. Cattell took 10 to 15 years, right? But Cattell did it by himself, probably. I'm sure he didn't have the type of limitless capital to investigate, to research. He probably wasn't getting paid on the side to come up with this. It was more of a personal project. Now you take that and you have these two guys that's all they're doing every single day for 2 years. You see how, like, from 15 years it gets down to 2 years because they're focused on it every single day, and this is all they're doing, you know. So they came up with the 5 order factors. They were simpler, more stable across samples, and still useful for predicting important outcomes like job performance. So the U.S. Air Force needed something efficient for real-world selection, not an overly complex academic model. And again, it's like, in psychology, this is the other thing. It's like, one of the things I've noticed too, tapping into, you know, the big 5, is that a lot of people that study it and are really into it, and I understand why, they have to keep it very medical, very, I don't know, what's the word? Cold, very cold, because, you know, they have to, because it's real. It's like, they have to keep it in a certain type of words that they use, or how they talk about it and all of this, because it has to be, you know, that's how it has to be. And so, with psychology, I think too, there's a lot of just like confusing terminology, things that you don't really understand until you absolutely love it, like I do, and like try to figure it out, right? But like, if you're just like a typical person that is living their life, trying to figure out like paying bills, and, you know, has a full-time job, and it's like, you don't have time for all this. You know, you don't have time for all this. You're just like, I know that I'm in pain. I just want somebody to help me. Can you please help me? And then the thing too is, you try to go to therapy, but then you gotta get there. If you have kids, who's gonna take care of them? Then you gotta pay for your whatever therapist. Then you gotta figure out which one, because there's a ton of different branches of psychology. Like, how do I figure this out? How do I talk to somebody? I need to talk. And it's just like, there's so much friction, you know, to trying to understand yourself. So I'll go back to this. So once I feel like when things are academic, they're not very simple to understand. When they're academic, and I know I've read a lot, like I've seen a lot of, I'm all about podcasts, all about all that stuff. And that's the issue with academics. I feel like they just, and even who talked about this? Was it Jordan Peterson? I can't remember. Somebody talked about how basically in academia, academics don't really care if like typical people understand stuff. It's like, they like keep it within themselves. It's kind of like, you know, it's like, it doesn't really matter if it gets out in the real world. You know what I mean? And so when the U.S. military came about with this information, I feel like it's like, we're not thinking about this academically. We're thinking about it as very practical. And I think that's when it changes. When anything that's very academic, that's very like, you know, on that side becomes more practical, then it really, the most important points of it are distilled. The most important information about it is distilled. So that's why these guys came up with the big 5. Again, guys, 500,000 words to 18,000 words to 4,500,000 words to 16 words, then to finally 5 words. 5 words that describe human behavior, human personality. Do you see that? I mean, you're like, what? That's ridiculous. That seems fake, right? I think that seems fake, unless you see the history of it. then you think, this is just too, to me, it was just like, this is too good to be true in a way. All right. So let's see. So I searched if after they came up with these 5 factors, if there was any evidence that they were used, and there really wasn't. It says the U.S. Air Force continued to use the 16 personality factor, the one that the Cattell came up with in the 1960s. Oh, and this is why, because there was a lot of skepticism around it, I think, because it was these 2 guys, and it's like, I don't know. There's just kind of like, well, you know, you guys came up with this, but it just kind of seems 5 words. Maybe we could have done 10 words, right? I think there's probably a lot of skepticism, like, yeah, I don't know how true that is. And the report came out, okay? The report was, what was it again? It was called a technical report. And okay, let me read to you. This is, I find this funny, okay? Because I was like, what is a technical report? I don't know what that was. Okay, this is the report name, so you have an idea what a technical report is. It is capital ASD-TR-61-97. That's what a technical report is. It's so boring. It's a super boring report, in other words. It's like a car manual, right? Super boring. Who sits around reading car manuals? Not me. Okay, so, and I was trying to figure out when it was disclassified. So it was classified information. You know when it got disclassified? Guess. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, in 1992, 31 years later, it was when it was became known to the public. 31 years later, it was disclassified. That is shocking. Okay, that is shocking. So they came up with that report, and then all right, 25 minutes in. Oh gosh, should I stop now? I'm gonna go to the next guy, and he's pretty short. I don't have a lot of information about him. And then in my other video, I'll go with the next one that was a big one. So after 1961, it was 1963. So 2 years later, okay, 2 years later, Warren T. Norman, don't have a picture of him. I don't know if, I'll try to look for a picture, but I don't have a picture of him. He was an academic psychologist, University of Michigan, who read the technical report. So he read it, okay? 2 years later, he read it. I guess he knew somebody in the military. I have no idea how he got his hands on this because it was classified information. And he decided to test it with his own data, okay? He wanted to test this report, independent factor analysis. Because again, I don't know if you remember that when Tupes and Christal did the factor analysis, or they used whatever intelligent mathematical stuff they used, they did it with information they already had in the U.S. military. So what Norman did was he gathered new data of peer nomination ratings from college students. So he wanted to test it. He probably was like, wow, this is super interesting. Let me see if it's true. So that's what he did. He tested it again, and then he came to the same 5 broad factors consistently across samples and gave them their first widely used descriptive labels. So in 1961, when Tupes and Christal came up with the 5 factors, nobody knew about it except the people in the U.S. military. 2 years later, Norman got his hands on this technical report, and he wanted to test it himself to see if it was true. And he figured out that it was. He searched his own data, and he came with the same consistent 5 traits. So the main thing that he did is that he took this report from the classified information and he proved it to the academia side of things. You see what I mean? It's like nobody knew about it. It was, internal. He took it, he got his hands on it, and then he tested it, and then he gave this information to academia, to psychologists, right? To psychologists. yeah, so that was the main thing he did. He tested on his own. And then, so he came to the same 5 broad factors consistently across samples and gave them their first widely used descriptive labels. All right, so he gave the first 5 names, and he gave them their first widely used descriptive labels. That's what he did. 1, surgency, which later is extroversion. 2, agreeableness. 3, dependability, later conscientiousness. 4, emotional stability, later neuroticism. And 5, culture, which is now known as openness. 5 words, guys. 5 words. 500,000 words, 18,000 words, 4,500,000 words, 16 words, 5 words. 5 words. 5 words that tell you how you're different from someone else. 5 words. 5 scores. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Okay. So the published name of the paper that he wrote out in 1963, Toward an Adequate Taxonomy of Personality Attributes, Replicated Factor Structure and Peer Nomination Personality Ratings, Journal of Abnormal and Social Psychology. Norman brought the findings to mainstream academic psychology by publishing in a peer-reviewed journal and using non-military data. He proved the structure wasn't just military artifact. It kept appearing in every social setting. That's it. That's all I have on him. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. And next time we are going to we're going to jump from 1961 to 1981 with Lewis R. Goldberg. He's the next one on in our history of the Big Five. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.